Zimbabwe cash crisis worse.
Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the one factor you do this thing called monetary awareness.
Next recession.
Recession will be
Will be a recession.
We're going to hit a recession.
The date of the next recession.
a U.S.-only recession typically lasts 8 to 10 months, but a lot of things about this particular one have not been typical. So
A crash is coming now, whether it's 6 months from now, 12 months, 36 months, no one knows.
I go to bed every night, I dream of another recession. If you know what to do, if you have the right plan to set up, you can make a lot of money from this.
Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RT News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, we're going to be talking about the monetary reconversion or the monetary redenomination of the Venezuelan bolivar, in which Maduro thinks just by dropping 3 zeros, he can kind of stabilize his economy somewhat. But as time has always proven that dropping zeros or adding zero never really helps a situation where monetary policy and fiscal policy, when they collide, it causes mass problems, of which we're seeing right now in Venezuela. But before I dive into those articles, as always, if you have not had a chance to check out my conversation today with Philip Haslam, the author of When Money Destroys Nations, and of which we talked about situations similar to Venezuela, but was happening out in his area in Zimbabwe. If you didn't have a chance to watch that RTD interview, I encourage you do, because you'll definitely learn a lot directly from someone who experienced the hyperinflation right on the border of his country. And then also tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, Lior Gantz will be joining us to share his thoughts on the current bond market as well as his current gold yuan situation out in China. So make sure you guys click the subscribe button and tap notification to be informed when we go live tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. But before I dive into today's articles, as always, if you're new to RTD, I want to encourage you to click the subscribe button along with that tab notification to be informed of the next RTD Live Talk as well as when news updates are released. More importantly, if you have not yet, join me on steemit.com/RTD, where I share articles throughout the day that I'm not able to put in video form. And then more importantly, if you're new to RTD altogether, I want to encourage you to visit the RTD University page, where I put together all my prior interviews dealing with matters such as this, as well as the importance of you yourself holding precious metals in your possession or nearby when situations like this arise. Other than that, let's dive into today's articles. So as I mentioned today, I have just 3 articles I want to share with you, all dealing with recent monetary issues in Venezuela, from the new issuance of the new currency coming out, as well as some criticism in regards to some falsified information on the Petro release. And then also direct you to a video I did a while back that'll help you get a better understanding of how all this plays out when monetary and fiscal policy collides and creates devastation for the public. So the very first article here is from Washington Post. It says, Venezuela hopes to tackle the world's worst inflation by deleting zeros from its currency. Very next one here is from Euro News. They're short, but yet it gives a small video here that I think is worth your time to take a look at in about 45 seconds to get an understanding as to what's going on in Venezuela. Next one here is from ccn.com, and it says Venezuela's president may have falsified information on the Petro. So the very first article here from Washington Post, and it is entitled, Venezuela hopes to tackle the world's worst inflation by deleting zeros from its currency. And so here you have a gentleman at the ATM machine that has a couple 2,000 notes, a couple 500 notes in his hands. In total, denominated in dollars, that's probably maybe $5 or so, give or take on a good day. But give you an idea what's going on in this article here, I'll read through it briefly. It says, economic pledges may be powerful, of course, in election campaigns, but in the hyperinflation Venezuela, the candidates' dueling promises are going further, with the incumbent vowing to lop a few zeros off the currency while his main challenger calls for the adoption of the U.S. dollar. So you have Maduro, who's running again for president. He's saying that he's going to chop off some zeros, of which everyone in our country is more than aware of. Adding zeros or removing zeros doesn't help the inflation there. And then the other challenger, the opposing party, wants to adopt the U.S. dollar as a legal tender in the country. President Nicolas Maduro late Thursday briefly outlined his monetary rescue plan in a country where a dozen eggs cost 250,000 bolivars, which is about $5. And so it's good to say these bills that this gentleman has in his hand here, which equals several thousand bolivars, is probably $1 or less, more likely. But it says he would chop 3 zeros off the currency, arguably bring the price of those eggs down to 250 bolivars. And it's quoted as saying, I ask you all for your prayers and support for the success of the monetary conversion, Maduro said in a televised event this Thursday night. So the idea, he's calling it a monetary reconversion, is another way of saying that there's no way of solving this matter. We're going to reconvert back to what it was a year ago. And most people don't really realize that up until 2017, in January 2017, is when the 3 zeros were added to the currency that's currently in circulation now. So a year later and 3 months now, they're going to remove 3 zeros from the currency because hyperinflation has reached several thousand% in inflation. And so there's no way of curving that inflation. So they have to go down to lower denominations, which means that gives them more leeway room to then add more zeros down the line if need be. So the idea of reconverting back to what would be considered a normal denominational figures is kind of absurd. But read on a little bit more. It says the move came as Henry Falcon, the former governor running against Maduro in election set for May, is proposing a far more radical fix. Says he wants to follow the path of countries such as Ecuador and Panama by dollarizing the Venezuelan economy. Doing so, he said, would prevent the printing of new bills, instantly constraining inflation. So you have the opposing party running on the idea that, hey, we're going to get rid of this bolivar altogether. We're going to adopt a dollar, even though the United States of America hasn't been friendly with Maduro and the Venezuelan country. So it's good to say that this gentleman who's running against Maduro might be a bought and paid for man by the banking system of the West, to where he's even suggesting using a dollar. Given the fact that the Eastern nations are moving away from the dollar, everyone outside of this region here on the Western Hemisphere seems to be de-dollarizing, but the candidate wants to bring dollars into the country. And so that lets me know that that gentleman there is probably not a true patriot of his own country, but yet that's probably appealing to those that are experiencing massive amounts of inflation within that country. So if you're interested, feel free to read more. So as I mentioned in this article here, is really short, but more importantly, take a minute and watch this video here. It's only 45 seconds. But what I wanted to pull out of this article is just a quote as to why Maduro feels that he needs to make this decision, outside of the fact that the gentleman running against him wants to add dollars to the economy. He said, he's quoted as saying, "I have decided to take 3 zeros off the currency and to take out of circulation the current currency and to put into circulation a new currency with 3 less zeros so as to safeguard the commercial and monetary activity of Venezuelans," he told a press conference. So, start back over. He said he wants to take out of circulation the current currency, which is the currency issued a year and 3 months ago with 3 figures on it. So you have the 100,000, 50,000, 20,000, 5,000, 1,000, and so forth. So he wants to remove those, even though they've just been put into circulation, and then implement the smaller denominations, which will be, as you see over my shoulder here, he's holding the new 100 Bolivar note, which it'll be already be 100, 50, 20, 5, 10, 5, 1, which was prior denomination up until 2017 January, when those large notes were issued. So I guess he figures that this will reestablish confidence in the country, with people feeling comfortable with using paper altogether. And I would imagine that because inflation is so high and there's so many notes floating around, I'm sure if you've watched any type of YouTube videos on what's happening in Venezuela, you see bundles and bundles of bricks of cash. And so people are tired of paper. So it's good to say that if given a chance, people would probably prefer dollars because of the perception of it being stable and the idea that dollars are scarce and carry a very high premium in Venezuela right now. So the idea of adopting the dollar into circulation as legal tender might be very appealing to a lot of Venezuelans. But time will tell. So last article here is Venezuela's president may have falsified information on the Petro. So given that what's going on here, it says Venezuela's token El Petro, the world's first cryptocurrency, would have raised $5 billion in its initial money offering, according to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. However, upon a review of the claims, CCN and Crypto Media's FASO, the numbers announced by Maduro have great chances of being false, given that the announced value is impossible to have been collected. It says, according to the white paper on the official site of the initiative, exactly 38,400,000 tokens were on offer, worth $60 each token. According to the numbers, the maximum the government could have raised would be $2.3 billion, not counting the discount. If Maduro tells the truth in his announcement, he does not tell the truth in the official documents on the project and in all previous announcements made by the president himself. After all, according to a new statement released, all tokens were sold 46% off the official amount announced. So here we have some information here that apparently the numbers aren't adding up. And so out of 38 million coins, of which most of them were sold initially on discount, and so that would not equal $5 billion as he was stating. So it's good to say that that whole coin situation initially might have been hype, but once again, not sure where this source of information comes from. But just keep in mind, you have a country that's very desperate for some type of stability, so I wouldn't really be confident in the numbers provided by them directly, even though the idea of providing a cryptocurrency that offers to bring capital to the country probably will be received well by other governments wanting their oil. But it's been stated that the locals and the public cannot use the currency within Venezuela, so no telling it. So basically it's not designed to help them. So here we have a video that I put together a while back, and it's called 5 Ways Government Debase Currencies. And so in this, the number 5 way governments debase currency is just through redenomination in general, where the government calls back the old currency and then issues a new currency at a different exchange rate of goods and services. And so that's what's happening right now in Venezuela with the whole reissuance of this whole Bolivar situation by lowering zeros or taking off zeros. And so at the end of the day, these things never end up working well for the public because there's so much paper in circulation that there's no way that you can actually recall or ignore the fact that there's been billions upon billions of pieces of paper flooding that country, of which confidence has been lost completely. So there's no reestablishing confidence and faith in a government that has proven to not be operating in the best interest of their country or in their citizens, because the inflation is so high, services are scarce. So the idea of issuing a new currency is not going to work at all. And then you have these Petro false numbers here, not sure if they're correct or not. But at the end of the day, as you can tell here, paper and ink is only as good as the confidence in it. And as of right now in Venezuela, they're experiencing the fact that there is no confidence in that paper and ink. And so this all ties into what happened down in Zimbabwe with the bond notes reissued a couple or 2 years ago, as well as all the other countries around the world that's experiencing tough living conditions based upon the inflation in the country because of monetary and fiscal policy. When they meet together, they're never in favor of the public, because governments thrive upon debt creation that comes from a private central bank, and the people are the ones that work for it and live off on it and depend upon it. And it's not designed to retain purchasing power. So this is a prime example of what happens when all this gets out of hand and it comes back to bite the public in the butt. So thought I would share what's happening with Venezuela. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, as well as share this information. And make sure you guys watch that interview I did today with Philip Haslam. It's very informative on matters such as this, as well as join me tomorrow night for RTD Live Talk with Leo Gantz. Looking forward to bringing more news and updates. Enjoy your day. Thanks.